All right, guys, this is part 2 of blood. We finished up part 1 talking about red blood cells. And remember, blood has multiple parts to it. Plasma is the majority of it. Remember, 55%. Red blood cells makes up a good amount of it as well, about 45%. And then your white blood cells and other platelets, that makes up the rest of it. So, and that's less than 1%. So, today we are going to talk about white blood cells. We finished off with red blood cells in the last section. Today we're going to talk about white blood cells. Next section we'll talk about platelets. So, white blood cells, what are they called? Leukocytes. And you should remember from terms that you've learned, leuko means white. So, leukocyte literally means white cell. And these are important for your immune system. This is where your immune system comes from. And this is, again, like I said in the last part, one of the reasons why we're talking about this is because the immune system is a hot topic right now. So leukocytes are the reason why you have a defense mechanism in your body and defense system against things that can harm you. And that can be bacteria, it can be viruses, parasites, all kinds of things, but you are constantly bombarded all day, every second of every day by things that could harm you all the time. Not just now in this pandemic that we're dealing with, but all the time. There are things on every surface, in every air compartment that you are exposed to. Everything that you touch has things that could possibly be harmful to you. The good news is you have leukocytes in your blood that are designed to be this army of defense against these things. So your body is extremely intelligent, and like I tell you guys all the time, the body's more smarter than any human will ever be. It can detect these foreign substances in your body, and it can send out these parts of this internal army to go and destroy those foreign substances so that they won't hurt you. Now, of course, there is times when it doesn't work fully well, and there are times when your immune system's not at its peak, and it could cause illness. That's true, but you can do things with your lifestyle to make sure that it is at its peak, like the things you eat and getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, getting exercise, making sure your body's active. All those things help to boost your immune system and keep your leukocytes numerous. So let's go ahead and look at the different types. Now, it's not just white blood cells. There's all different types of white blood cells. When we talked about red blood cells in the last part, yeah, there's just one type of red blood cell. That's it. But there are lots of different types of white blood cells, and that is important and necessary for our immune system because they all have different functions, and they help with different parts of your immune system and with different defenses against different things. So we're going to look at them all together, but we're going to look at granulocytes and what's called agranulocytes, and you'll see what the difference is here as we go through. So special characteristics of white blood cells. They're made to slip into and out of blood vessels. That's a really cool thing about white blood cells. It's called diapedesis. Diapedesis basically means to step through. Ped means foot, dia means through. So diapedesis basically, technically means to step through. And that's the cool thing about white blood cells. They're not contained by vessels or vascular substances in your body. They can just go right through those, and that is very important for your immune system too, because they can go straight to a site that they need to be and get in there as fast as possible. So that's a cool thing about white blood cells. They also can locate areas of tissue damage. They have this sensor called positive chemotaxis. Positive chemotaxis can actually sense damaged tissue or damaged cells or foreign substances in your body, and it basically, this thing in your body can send off a signal, and these white blood cells can detect that, and they can go to that area and fight against the foreign substance, or start repairing that damaged tissue, or protect that damaged area from any additional damage or infection, that kind of thing. So there's really cool components to white blood cells that help them be so important for the function of your body. White blood cells have, the way they move is this amoeboid movement, and if you don't remember from biology and other science classes what an amoeba is, what an amoeba is, it's a single cell organism, kind of looks like this, and it kind of moves through fluid, and it kind of like changes shape as it moves, and it can actually engulf things as it moves. So if you look at this, you can see how that's what happens with a white blood cell. That's how it functions. So it comes in, and say this is a parasite or a virus or a bacteria or whatever. It comes in and actually engulfs that foreign substance and brings it in so it can destroy it and get rid of it. And that's that amoeboid movement. So that's really cool about the white blood cells. And that action that allows it to do that, it helps to speed up the production. As many as twice the normal number may appear in the blood within a few hours. That if you have some kind of damage or some kind of foreign substance or something, it actually increases the production of the white blood cell, and it sends it to where it needs to be so that it can help fight off whatever it needs to fight off. Leukocytosis, total number of white blood cell count above 11,000 cells, is generally indicates that a bacterial or infection or a viral infection is going on. So when they check for infection in your body and they take your blood, what they're looking for is an increased amount of white blood cells. If white blood cells are high, then that's a sign that there's infection going on. Leukopenia means that you don't have enough, and that's not good either. And actually, that white blood cell count being high can be good if there's an infection in your body, because you want more white blood cells so you can kill them off. But there can be a point where you have too many. We'll look at that in a second. But not enough is definitely not good, because that causes immune deficiency, and that's kind of the issue that some people are dealing with right now. If they have that low white blood cell count, they want to make sure that they stay away from people and keep themselves covered so they won't contract any problems right now. All blood cells are formed in the bone, and we talked about this when we did skeletal system. Remember we talked about the different types of bone marrow. Remember, this is yellow bone marrow in here, and red bone marrow is up here. Red bone marrow is where blood cells are created, and that's all blood cells, not just red blood cells, because then people get that confused because it's called red bone marrow. It's red blood cells, but all blood cells are created there. They all come from there. Red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and that's that production of blood is an important part of the skeletal system. You can, like I said earlier, you can have too many white blood cells in your blood, and you may have heard of it before, leukemia. This is a kind of a rising condition, actually becoming more common in children than adults. And this leukemia means that there's too many white blood cells in your body, and that the problem is that it actually starts to destroy your own cells instead of just bacteria and viruses, and the body becomes easy prey of disease-causing bacteria and viruses because it actually lowers your immune system, because you have these white blood cells that are immature and not capable of carrying out any function, and so they actually start taking over space for red blood cells, which affects the overall function of your body. So this is a picture of kind of what it starts to look like here. So these are the red blood cells. Remember from our last part, our last lecture, that actually most of the cells in your blood are red blood cells by 1,000 to 1. But with leukemia, you start to have more white blood cells. Still not more than red blood cells, but there's a lot more. So it starts to take over kind of the control of the blood itself, and it can affect overall function of your body. There's a lot of different types of white blood cells that you need to understand. There's 2 different categories, granulocytes and agranulocytes. We'll look at all these individually. So this is them broken down here, but let's look at them individually. Granulocytes can be broken down into 3 different types of cells: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. And these are all used for different things in your body, and they function in different ways. So let's look at each one individually here. Neutrophils, they are multi-lobed nuclei. So what that means is they have all these large blotches you see here. Those are all connected, and those are that's the nucleus of that cell. But you can see how there's multiple lobes to it. That's what that multi-lobed nucleus means. These are phagocytes, which means they engulf things and they eat it and they destroy it. And these are very common in acute infection. So basically, if you just got sick, or you just got a cold, or you just were infected by some kind of virus or bacteria or something, these would be really prevalent in your body. So about 60% of white blood cells. So when you get sick, neutrophils are usually the ones that are fighting against whatever is making you sick. Or they're also found in pus and wounds. So when you get a cut, they help fight against infection and prevent that cut from getting infected. Eosinophils are less numerous, and what these are mostly, their main function is helping during an allergy reaction. So when if you have seasonal allergies, you have a problem with allergies, eosinophils are the ones that cause that allergic reaction. And this is kind of what they look like. They have what's called a telephone receiver type look to their nucleus. That's kind of the old school telephone receiver, and that's what they look like under the microscope. And they mainly attack parasites, which parasites are something that needs a host, right? So viruses are considered parasites. So eosinophils would be important during viral infection and viral defense. And they're only about 2% of the white blood cells, so not nearly as numerous as neutrophils. Basophils are the last granulocytes, and these are large histamine-containing granules. Histamine is what's released when you have an inflammatory reaction in your body. When you have like runny nose, your head is congested, or if you have swelling somewhere, that is a histamine reaction. So blood starts flowing better, and you get an inflammatory reaction. Those are basophils that make that happen. Only about 1% of white blood cells have that, are basophils. Dermatography and cold urticaria. These are reactions to inflammatory responses, and these are people that have a higher basophil content in their body that can have this reaction to certain things. If you just like a little scratch in your skin and you get a big swollen spot on there, that could be dermatographia. Agranulocytes, there's 2 of those, lymphocytes and monocytes. Lymphocytes are very common. They're part of the lymphatic system, and they're produced right there in the lymphatic tissues that flows all throughout your whole body. And they have large, dark nuclei, and these are one of the main defenses in your immune system, about 30% of your white blood cells, and these are constantly acting all the time, keeping your body healthy. They produce antibodies that fights against things. Then you have monocytes, these are called macrophages. They're huge cells that will engulf stuff and destroy it and get it out of your body. There's only about 6% of the white blood cells that make this, and this is your first line of defense against an infection. This video right here, go ahead and watch that yourself, and I'll give you another overview of the white blood cells. Next time we're going to talk about platelets. And that's the end of part 2.